Oh, there you are. Welcome back to Prairie Wings Performance. I'm Merle. And in this video, we're back on the old Corvair. And this Corvair is so cool, and it's going to be way cooler because one of the mods that we are doing is we are disc braking this car. The front end already has some disc brake work done to it, and we'll see what else we might need to do to that. But the back end is the cool thing. I am putting Wilwood disc brakes on the back of this Corvair, and I'm going to show you how I do it. This is all disassembled. In order to get this kit to work, this is the internal drum brake and the caliper mount for the disc brake kit. Now, this bolt pattern doesn't fit on here, as well as this needs to go through the middle of this. So first of all, I am starting with a 12 bolt kit. We'll put a part number in there. And then I'm going to have to disassemble this, machine it, modify some holes, and then make a park brake mount. And so I'm not going to be showing you how to set up the bearings in this, all that kind of stuff. We're going to skip those parts. But what I need to do is to start to get this assembled where I can actually show you what's going on. First of all, when you have this apart, the orientation, the part number, the way this is sitting, you should be able to read that part number. So this is down. Now, I grabbed the other side so we can take a quick look here. But if you look, this doesn't fit on to that spindle. So what needs to happen is this needs to get machined so it will sit flat on this surface. And then if you take a look here, the bolt holes not lining up. So we will get that figured out, and I'm going to have to blow this apart, which I'm going to do, check it up in the lathe and start machining. As I was setting this up, my 3-jaw chuck is not big enough, so I put the 4-jaw on it, and as I was setting it up, I found out that this plate has a little bit of warp to it, which isn't going to matter. When it tightens up, it'll straighten out. But I am machining this hole out a little bit bigger than what I need just to account for powder coating on the other parts. So it is going to be exactly 2.9 inches. So this is machined where it's going to fit over top here. But what I am really going to be concerned about now is making sure that this level right here is the same level as where the park brake lever comes out. Because if we offset this to line up with the holes without rotating it, well, my park brake is not going to be dead level. So I'm actually going to have to rotate it where it is level. So the thing I'm going to do is mark this all out where it's level. You can see right through this hole. If I center this really nicely, I can see right through the hole to the top of this. And what I'm going to do is these holes are almost dead on lined up, like ridiculously close. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark this to here. And then I can slide this down and actually mark where those holes need to move to. All right, I have this lined up and I'm talking like a degree out, and these holes just need to be slotted out. I'm not sure if you're able to tell that, but that's what's going to happen. I'm going to take and slot these holes, and then these holes, I'll show you how I mark those. Now that I have these holes slotted, I've turned this over, bolted it on with 2 bolts. I'm using bolts with, they're real long with shoulders. And then I am taking this center punch. So you can buy a set of these, they're relatively cheap. And this is aluminum, so it's gonna mark real easy. 2 trains of thought on this one. I'll show both this and drop in. I just have this wood in here for nice backing. Give it a mark, do it to both sides. This setup, I can put right in the drill press. If you're doing this with a hand drill, probably mark it like this. In the drill press is going to be easy for me to clamp in and just drill straight through. Machined, drilled, absolutely, after I did that, fits like perfect, like a glove. Tiny, tiny, tiny bit of movement, but very tiny. So this fits on here great. And the cool thing is, the idea that I got for this was from David Clemens. He owns Stinger Motorsports, and I believe he's in Virginia. I'd have to look, but anyway, if you don't feel confident with machining, drilling, doing all this stuff, he does a really cool kit. You can just send him your arm and he'll do this upgrade for you. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's done lots of them. He said it's okay that if I say that, but he does this kit. You send him the arm, you get it back. The nice thing is you ain't gonna have to worry about setting up the bearings and stuff, because he'll put new bearings. He'll have the brakes ready, send this back, and you install it in your car. But anyway, I'm going to carry on with what I'm dealing with. Now, originally, this came with hardware that was in here, and it had 2 washers in, and this hardware was in there. Now, the deal that I'm dealing with this is these in here were hitting here. Now, I have minute amount of clearance, and these are grade 5 bolts, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take and get some grade 8 hardware, and I'm going to machine the end of the bolt off so that they aren't running into the brakes, because the brakes actually are against these. And that's what I am going to do, is change this hardware from these Allen head cap screws to just regular bolts. I'm only going to go with 1 washer, and it should be a pretty nice little fix. The other thing is, these are 5/16 fine thread, and with the way the park brake cable is going to go, these here, you're going to have to get extra 5/16 for this as well if you're doing this, because the park brake bracket, you can see it ain't going to fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a new bracket like this and put it on here, and then it will be a permanent part of this. I'm going to use this to mark it out. We'll get to that. Happy days, but there is a mod that's going to have to happen. And what I will do is show you what this is going to have to look like. So all I have is this, just for test purpose, not clean, not anything, shoved in there. And I have this on. Now, these come with a little spacer that goes in behind the rotor, and there is an interference. So I'm going to have to take, I don't want to reset up the lathe until I have the other side completely done. I've already started working on it, but this wheel spacer, as it goes down, there's a little tiny lip on here. And so this little tiny wheel or rotor spacer is going to need to have a tiny bit machined out of it to fit over that. And then this will hub center this, which is going to be perfect. Now the offset on the rotor, or yeah, on the rotor caliper, we'll call it. Well, the Wilwood calipers come with a spacer kit, and this is to put the caliper on. And on this, it's going to work. I probably won't set this up totally until we are all wheel bearing adjusted, but it is going to have to be spaced back a little bit. But this is going to make a very pretty disc brake setup for this car. Anywho, I am going to get the other side done, then I'll get this machined, and I'll set it up so that you can see. I'll probably space it up just because I can. I got quite the mess of tools and so on going on here. But I do have it bolted together enough, not all the bolts are tight, these are, to get this together. And so I just had to machine a hair out of that spacer. And now that fits on beautifully. And the reason I'm doing this is I am going to set this up to see how much I have to shim this and if we're going to get away with what we did here. And it looks like I'm going to try 3 shims on this to start. It looks as though 3 shims are too much. So I guess we'll go with 2 shims. And if you read the Wilwood instructions, which I didn't open on this one because I've done quite a few of these. They're beautiful brakes. This is exactly what you need to do when you are putting the Wilwood brakes on. They do require the use of shims in there. I have a cricket in here, and that cricket really annoys me. He has a family of crickets, and that family of crickets are really noisy. Sometimes you zone out. And then another thing that is a really good quick note is when you have all of this apart, both sides, everything, there is a right and a left. The backing plates are the same. They appear to be the same. The parking brake arm and the caliper bracket are different side to side. So I am rocking this to where the bearing is sitting, and I hope that you can see, but that is perfectly evenly spaced now. And this is going to be a great install. So for now, I am ready to pull this off and figure out how that park brake cable is going to attach to the top of this. I'd like to give you some detail of what I'm going to do with this bracket and why. If I take a look at this and this is where the original park brake bracket was. I measured out with the original spacer to how far out that needs to be. And this spacer, which is to how far this is out to be. And it would place, this is just not the right orientation, it would place basically the thickness of this material on the corner of this. Now, if we look at these brackets and I line up, this is the bracket that's supposed to be here. If I line it up here, I'd have to nip the bottom of that off. And me lining it up, if you look at these, they're offset left and right, and the whole comparison is offset. So if I take the one from the wrong side and I cut this off here and weld it onto the corner, this hole will only be 100 thou higher than what the original setup was, which 100 thou on a park brake cable height, I'm not worried about in the least. Now, the original thought was I was going to be putting it on in this orientation, but I found that if I take and cut this jog off and weld it directly parallel on that, lined up with the first mark, the second outer one was an oops there, this will actually give me more clearance because this is on an angle. This is going to give me more clearance because we're putting big fat wheels on this car. So that is the plan. I'm going to hack this off here. I'm going to leave this extra height, whatever. I might even leave that bolt hole. And I'm going to weld it on to the very edge of that. And it will give us a great pull on, if you look through the hole, on the lever. Right through there is the park brake lever. Here it is assembled and welded on now, and we'll get her put together and take another look. I am just assembling this here, and I thought I'd give you a quick note. So I'm replacing these with grade 8 bolts, and these ones up here are 5/16 by 3/4 grade 8, and I'm just Loctiting them and torquing them to 27 foot-pounds because that's what that bolt is recommended to be used by the iEngineer app. That's what I like to use for looking up the specs. Now, these ones here are 5/16 fine thread, so 5/16 24 by 1.5 inches. And the original ones were a cap screw using an Allen wrench, and they had 2 washers stacked underneath. So instead of doing that for clearance, what I'm doing is I am taking and I'm cutting about 1/8 of an inch off these bolts. And the reason is they won't stick out past and hold the shoes up. And I believe that's what their reasoning was when they put it together. And so I'm also torquing these to the same torque spec, 27 foot-pounds. Anyway, that is the hardware that I'm using. Though we're doing a disc brake conversion, this is the drum and hat, and these are what's called spoons, and that's how you adjust the parking brake. That's the drum brake in the disc brake that applies parking brake. It's very important on a Corvair. As we know, this doesn't have a parking pole. These did not work, so what I did is I just took a piece of tubing, welded a piece of square, and cold forged it flat and shaped it. Now, I really like how this turned out, minus the fact, if I was doing this again, I'll just do this for reference video. If I was doing this again, I would have made this tip about 1/4 inch longer. So there it is. So you got measurements if you got to build your own. Now, over on the car, we have where the adjuster hole is. I will just put this tool in. So that is where you adjust the star wheel adjuster. You can look back on the videos, or maybe we can put one in there, but to adjust it up where it gets tighter, you got to pry down the star wheel adjuster. And what I did as an initial setting, I got it where this was snug enough that it was like stiff to almost not turning, and then I went up 4 teeth, and that is my initial park brake adjustment for this, and I can go ahead and start making cables. While we're here, we'll just take a look. This is the brake line, the hydraulic brake line made up here and bent nicely around and out of the way. This is the factory location where it was. This line will be changing. But that turned out pretty good. On with the park brake. So using a universal park brake cable kit, they're just, universal. There's a bunch of different brands. They all pretty much look the same. And what I've done is this sheath right here on both sides, done the same thing. This from the end of the thread right here to the end of the cut down under there, I made those cables 18.5 inches exactly. Now, what I've done is I made it so that I have all the adjustment in case there's stretch or whatever. So I have these kind of maxed out. And then running across here, it goes through the factory bracket location, and I have that at the extreme limit kind of adjustment. So it can be adjusted lots, and come back over to this side, and it is the exact same over here lengthwise and bolted into the factory spot. I had to add a couple brackets or washers on there, and then coming back over here, same deal. And what I've done is I am able to get away with 1 cable out of that kit, because this is long enough to go side to side, mocking the factory cable kit. So actually, I don't know if you can see it, I have it marked here and down there. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm crimping these ends on. I have room to put 2 in there, so that's what I'm going to be doing, and crimping it up. And this will be very similar to how the factory park brake cable worked in this, other than the original ones would have went underneath. These are going on top, which will be totally fine. And the front cable is totally a factory cable setup. So the cables, the factory stuff, I mean, this is the factory original rear cables. But of course, the way it's routed and the way the ends are and everything, I would not be able to use this, but it is one solid cable. Thank you so much for checking out this video about doing a little disc brake conversion. It turned out really good. Thanks to David Clemens for his idea on this as well. And if anyone needs to get this done, you get a hold of him. He's a genius at it. Kind of seems a little bit strange that we are putting this thing back together, but it needs to go to the body shop to get tweaked so the body is straight, so the trunk lines up and the hood lines up and all that stuff. Now, we still have to get it running, and there's a bunch of other videos on all that, so please check those out. And I really appreciate you guys checking these videos out. We really like sharing how things are done in the shop. And if you don't mind, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments.